We are 10 weeks into a conflict that has shut down one of the world's most critical shipping lanes, sent energy prices through the roof, and left Western governments scrambling for a response that looks more like coherence than chaos. Tonight, Iran has submitted a 14-point peace proposal to the United States, and Donald Trump has already told the world he can't imagine it would be acceptable, even before reading it. He's reviewing it now. He's left the door open for new strikes, and he's vowing to maintain the naval blockade. The Strait of Hormuz is still closed, the world is still paying, and nobody in this crisis looks like they have a clear path to the exit. Joining me now are Marcus Webb, our defense and security analyst, and Sophia Reeves, our economics and markets editor. Marcus, let me start with you. Is Trump's preemptive skepticism about this Iranian proposal a sign of strategic discipline, or is he walking us toward an escalation that nobody can control?
Thanks, Emma. Look, I think the question almost answers itself, and I'd say the preemptive skepticism is entirely rational, and here's why. This is the second Iranian proposal Trump has rejected this week. The first one he turned down because Tehran wasn't willing to give Washington what it, quote, needs to have. Now we've got a 14-point document, and I'd wager serious money that point 14 is not, we'll dismantle our nuclear enrichment program and stop funding proxy militias across the Middle East. Iran is doing what Iran always does. It's submitting paper while maintaining the economic weapon. Hormuz stays shut even as they hand over a peace proposal. That's not a peace strategy. That's a stalling strategy. Douglas Murray has been making this point for years. The Islamic Republic's negotiating posture is almost always designed to buy time, not to reach resolution. Trump's instinct here, that Iran hasn't yet paid a big enough price, is the correct strategic read. Weakness and premature concession is what got us to this point in the first place. The hard truth is that maximum pressure, maintained consistently, is the only thing that has ever produced genuine behavioral change from Tehran.
But Marcus, with the greatest respect, Trump's vow to maintain the naval blockade while Iran's Hormuz closure stays in place, aren't we at serious risk of turning a regional conflict into a full-scale economic catastrophe for the West? And Sophia, what's your take on this?
Well, look, I respect Marcus's strategic framework enormously, but here's what I think he's underweighting. 20% of global oil trade through that strait, 21 million barrels a day in normal times, gone for 10 weeks. The Telegraph is reporting that Britain's food chain is already broken, not strained, broken, and that's just the UK. We're talking about inflation feeding through to every Western economy simultaneously, while ordinary people pay the price at the petrol pump and the supermarket checkout. The uncomfortable truth is that maximum pressure costs us too. And the question I'd want answered before I signed off on Trump's strategy is, at what point does domestic political pressure inside the United States, gas prices, food prices, consumer pain, force a premature diplomatic climb down that actually rewards Iran for the hostage-taking approach it's applied to global energy markets? The data suggests that authoritarian regimes can absorb economic pain that democracies cannot, because they don't face elections. Iran's leadership is not facing a ballot box. Trump's party is. That asymmetry is the strategic risk nobody in the hawkish camp is being honest about.
I hear what Sophia is saying, but with respect, that misses the point entirely. The argument, it costs us too, so we should back down, is precisely the argument that produced the JCPOA disaster. Yes, maintaining pressure has costs. Yes, the Hormuz closure is hurting Western economies. But here's the fundamental question. What does backing down cost? What does a partial deal that allows Iran to walk away with its nuclear program and its proxy network intact actually buy us? 6 months? 18 months? And then we're back here again, except Iran is closer to a nuclear weapon and has learned definitively that economic warfare against the West produces concessions. The pain now is the price of not paying a far greater price later. Short sentences, because this matters. Strength deters. Weakness invites. Every time the West has blinked at a critical moment, Obama's red line in Syria, the JCPOA cash payments, the European appeasement of Iranian behavior post-2018, Iran has escalated every single time. I'm not prepared to recommend another round of that failure, dressed up as diplomacy.
Here's what I want to know, and this is the question that I think keeps strategists awake at night. If this 14-point proposal is rejected, which Trump is clearly telegraphing it likely will be, What actually happens next? Are we looking at resumed strikes, a permanent Hormuz closure, or something worse? Sophia, where do you see this going?
The way I see this playing out, and I want to be clear, these are scenarios, not certainties. The most probable short-term outcome is a partial deal that nobody is happy with, but everyone can live with for now. Tehran offers something cosmetic on nuclear transparency. Washington agrees to ease some of the naval pressure. Hormuz partially reopens, and both sides declare a form of victory. Markets would rally, energy prices would ease. And then, and this is the bit that worries me most, the underlying architecture of this conflict remains completely unresolved, and we reset the clock. If current trends continue toward a breakdown without any deal, the economic trajectory for the UK and Europe in particular is genuinely alarming. Britain's food chain vulnerability, as the Telegraph has documented, is not a short-term disruption story. It's a structural exposure story.
Here's what concerns me most, and it's actually a different risk to what Sophia is identifying. The risk isn't that Trump escalates too hard. The risk is that the pressure campaign is abandoned just as it's beginning to work. Iran's economy is in crisis. The rial is collapsing. Internal pressure on the regime is real. If the West maintains resolve for another 6 to 8 weeks, the trajectory suggests we get genuine concessions rather than cosmetic ones. What history tells us, from Reagan and the Soviets to the First Gulf War, is that decisive American resolve, maintained consistently, produces results. The failure mode isn't too much pressure. It's pressure applied inconsistently, abandoned prematurely, because the diplomatic class gets nervous and the editorial boards get squeamish. That is how we end up with Iran nuclear capable and Hormuz as a permanent weapon in Tehran's arsenal.
Gentlemen and Sophia, the 14-point proposal is on Trump's desk tonight, the naval blockade holds, and somewhere in Tehran, the clerical leadership is watching American resolve for the first time in years. One thing is absolutely certain, somebody in that regime is not sleeping well tonight, and they probably should not be.